Morning, Trainiacs. We have a early start to today's fat bike ride because I just picked up a little bit of new pedal action for the fat bike. Let me explain. So when I first got the fat bike, I just put on these platform pedals because, well, I'm a triathlete, so we aren't very good at bike handling. Now, one season in, I got myself an actual set of winter cycling boots. I'll show you those later on. And some clip-in egg beater pedals. Not for any reason besides I like saying I've got egg beater pedals. And I'm gonna show you how to replace pedals. It should be a very simple job. Pretty much always is if you've done it a bunch of times, but there are a couple things that you need to know the first few times you end up changing your pedals. So when it comes to changing over your pedals, there's one of two ways that you can do it. One of them you need fairly specialized bike tools for. The other one, just any old Allen key will work. Let me show you. So you see this here? You see that little spot in between the pedal and the crank? Well, that can actually be grabbed onto by one second. That can actually be grabbed onto by a pair of pliers like this, or if you've got the right sized wrench, you can get in there with a wrench. But in a lot of cases, that wrench and the room in between the pedal and the crank isn't quite going to be enough room for your standard wrenches here. So your other option is that inside of all these pedals is an Allen key. Now you don't really need a specialized Allen key like you might need a very specialized wrench that is fairly thin and narrow, like this one here, which is just wispy thin, like maybe only 1/8 of an inch thick. These, just to load up on a whole bunch of these, when you've got all of these at your disposal, typically quite easily, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So what we want to do is use the much more easily accessible Allen keys, much more common and more broadly usable, because no matter which pedals you've got, you can make this work. Depending on which pedals you've got, you might not be able to make things like this work, and if you're using that, you could be stripping the bolt. If you're using that, it might be a little bit too wide depending on the pedal. So let me show you how to use the Allen key. So quite often pedals, just from like rust and corrosion, will end up getting almost fused onto the crank. So there's two good methods that I've figured out to get off both sides. Now, approaching it from the right hand side of the bike as you're sitting on it, here's what you do. Get the pedal down to about 6 o'clock at the bottom, insert the Allen key, basically just going to hold the pedal and the bike in place and push down. And all of that torque coming from your body weight is going to unlock the pedal really easily. Unscrew that. Then the other side can be a little bit tougher because they thread the opposite way. So what I end up finding works well is getting that Allen key into a point that you can see how I've got it close enough that I can grab the crank arm and here, we'll get this really nice and close. But I can grab the crank arm and the Allen key at the same time and then just squeeze them, and it gives you that nice bit of leverage to end up locking it out. So once you've got those off, tell you how to install new pedals so that they don't get locked up like that. When you end up getting brand new pedals, you're going to want to take a little bit of axle grease. This is like a really thick, goopy kind of grease. It's almost like Crisco. So take a little bit of that, put it all the way around the pedal, and that grease is going to allow the pedal and the shaft to slide in and out very easily because the grease is going to stop it from corroding onto the crank arm. Also, I like to have a washer that goes onto the new pedal, and that washer is going to stop the inside of the pedal shaft from also fusing to the crank arm. And do that with both pedals. And then once that's done, of course, we just do the reverse. Different Allen key. And as you're tightening it, if you've got your bike mounted in a bit of a stable place, like up against a wall, it shouldn't really take a ton of pressure. Just press gently on one side, and if it's not going in, don't force it because you're going to end up cross-threading. But because you've got that grease on there, it should end up going on once you get it in the right spot fairly easily. Basically, you just get it to barely finger tight because the motion of the pedal stroke itself is going to end up tightening that up on both sides. All right, pedals are on. Allow me to go gear up. I'll show you my new boots. Let's take this for a fat ride, shall we? Man, it's just so much fun every stinking week. There was one point there that I'm sure I was only about 3 inches off the ground, but it felt like I was gonna jump over every single building in the area. All right, let me give you the rundown quickly of how to dress for this. It's a lot less than you think. Okay, so you don't have to be a fat bike rider to dress like this because the premise is basically the same, whether I'll speak in Fahrenheit for everyone, whether it's like 50 degrees or 40 degrees or just below freezing. Main thing is to have your head warm and your neck warm. So I just use a thermal toque, a very thin neck warmer, and then here is where all the magic happens. It's a lot less than you expect because your body heats up so much. So this here, super, super thin, like just paper thin Scotty jacket that is windproof. That's the key. Just a tiny amount of insulation in there. And why you don't go super thick on the exterior is because you don't want to trap in everything. Then I've got a cycling jersey. Again, no insulation there. But as it gets colder and colder, what you do is you just gradually add thin layers underneath. So right now, I have one thin merino wool layer and then one base layer. That's it. And today was, I gotta speak in Celsius here, minus 11 Celsius, so we're talking somewhere around 0 Fahrenheit, I think. Boots. These are the 45 North Wolfgars. Not bad. Tootsies were a little bit cold. All I had was one layer of socks underneath, and same sort of thing. Windproof, base layer underneath, and I could get away with this all the way down to like minus 15, maybe more. Extend your riding season, Trainiacs. All right, that is how you put on pedals properly. And if you aren't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button below. If you are subscribed, go get yourself a fat bike and have some fun. How nice does my hair look? Does it look good? Oh, is that a side part or a center part? Yeah. Later.